y'all like my shirt? Cool, huh? Laser guns. Yeah, I got about as mixed of feelings about this shirt as my playtesters had about my game. It definitely had some mixed results. That is a bug. Yes, you have found another bug. So, like I said, I encourage you not to abuse the bugs.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why builder exists.
I obviously have to get something through here. Oh,
Oh.
I don't think it's supposed to be me though. We're gonna pretend I didn't do that. There we go.
Welcome back for Devlog 4. It's crazy to think that I've already been doing this for a month now. We're a month into development here, and technically a little bit more if you include the 1 week of planning I did before this. But yeah, we just finished the game's first playtest. Woo! And it was definitely interesting. It went about as well as I'd expect it to go, if not actually slightly better for some people. But it was extremely useful, extremely informative, and even early into the development like this, it's actually very, very valuable. So let's go ahead and get into the results. First question, just overall feelings and thoughts right now.
I'm glad it's over.
Did you have fun with the playtest?
I did. The only moment that I didn't have fun was getting through the lava. Up and around.
You weren't too frustrated by the air sort of blowing that block around a lot?
No, because I know that's my reaction time of clicking, and I was not frustrated and more laughing at myself than anything.
Fair enough. Specifically, what mechanic was most interesting to you?
I guess it wasn't really the mechanics, but how they interacted with each other. So like having to swap in midair to get the like the right speed and trajectories that you wanted and stuff. That was really fun. And just thinking about how things fit together to solve the problem. That was the most interesting thing for me.
Overall, I'm very happy with the results. I got a lot of great ideas out of the 3 people who participated in the playtest, and I like to think that most of them had quite a bit of fun. There certainly was some points of frustration during this, but really it seems that that's mostly just around the air elemental and the projectiles.
And the first level, that cloud section was way too hard of a section. I guess it wasn't meant for an introduction, so it's probably fine, but that was a pain in the ass. And I think a lot of the frustration really comes in that this is a beta test, or this is a prototype test, and like you can't even use your maximum momentum on the block. If you could, I feel like some of these issues wouldn't be like that last section there on the 3rd level would not have been nearly as bad if I had full mobility of like my momentum. But there's like there's only so far you can go before it just doesn't work anymore.
There were also some issues generally with the control of the elements, such as the air elemental being extremely jerky to move around. As Sean put it, it felt kind of like a leaf in the wind, which is a great description, honestly, for it. And also the earth elemental having certain restrictions that seem pretty unnecessary, which the intent behind that was originally that the earth elemental is supposed to be heavy and difficult to move around, kind of lumbering, but what ended up happening was that it just felt kind of unnecessary and lame, and so the earth elemental just moved very slowly, and jumps, you just couldn't control it, and that felt very unintuitive, very just poor design overall, just unneeded restrictions for the earth elemental. There were also some issues with the idea of always having to push the trigger block into a location to actually end the level. I haven't actually mentioned it yet, but I did a little bit of development before launching the playtest. One of the things I made was this block, which acts as a game trigger. When it's placed in a matching zone of the same color, it causes some sort of trigger in the game to occur, causing like a barrier to disappear on a wall, or for the most part, just used as a level transition. This was probably the most mixed for the playtesters to have to deal with, aside from the actual puzzles themselves. One of the hardest parts about this whole process is that when making the puzzles, it's incredibly difficult to know what's actually going to be fun and what's actually going to feel challenging, especially when you're coming from the perspective of a developer. You know exactly what's supposed to happen. You design the puzzle. You know all the kinks of your game. You know exactly how your character plays. And so one of the most challenging parts is to even like take that perspective of a brand new player and then be thrown into these puzzles without any prior experience other than a very quick tutorial. So that's one of the most valuable parts of a playtest itself, is just getting that experience and getting that feedback from the players, because it's hard to know if the puzzles you've built are any good, and it's difficult to know how they'll also be received by everyone. What were your thoughts on the puzzles?
They were hard.
Were they very hard? Yeah. Were they like too hard, you think?
No, I think my brain just doesn't logic. I think for other people in the world, they'd make perfect sense. But for me, if I don't see it, it's out of sight, out of mind. Therefore,
yeah.
it's hard for me. But I think other people might not find it as hard. But again, I could just be saying that without any basis of fact. So.
Okay.
I think mostly on level 2 it wasn't obvious enough. I think on level 2 it was very maybe it was too much going on that I forgot that there was a whole nother path to go back around. Because on puzzle 3, when I got there, right, I noticed something in the lava was weird, so I went and checked out the lava. I gathered all that intel, and I went all the way back around, kind of gathered like my thoughts on how I was going to proceed with this puzzle. And then when I was messing around with the fire, it occurred to me like, oh, I need to set myself on fire to get those blocks. That checks out.
I mean, that was pretty fun. I actually like the difficulty of the puzzles. The way that the puzzles incorporated all like the different things you can do was interesting as well. I felt like I had to really think about what every part of the kit. So that was nice.
Yeah, so I hope this is showing you how difficult it is to make a good puzzle game. And it's certainly showing me how difficult it is, because this feels like one of those situations where you just won't have anybody that's happy, right? Everybody's going to have a different experience with puzzle games. Everybody's going to come across them differently. They're going to come from different backgrounds. For me, you know, I'm a programmer. I have a very analytical background, and so logic puzzles are much easier for me. I can use the tools, think about it, come to a solution with them. But not everybody is like that, right? And so this is going to impact people's experience of the game, and it sort of comes down to, like, do I just make a softer game that's hopefully palatable to everybody, but just not as fun for more people, or a game that's, like, more fun for people like me, or people who are more analytical in the way that they think and solve puzzles. And so with that being a puzzle game, it's one of those things where I just have to make a decision that not everybody's going to be happy with it regardless, and I just need to make what hopefully I'll be happy with and what hopefully the audience that it's targeted at will be happy with, find difficult enough. Not to say that there wasn't any good feedback on this. I actually feel like I got a ton of really great ideas. So a couple features I feel like kind of come out of this that might be helpful in this case. So probably a mini map that shows what you've explored, so that way you can kind of see, okay, this is like the shape of the map. Do you think that would be helpful?
Yeah, I do, because there's a lot of times where I'm trying to remember what I went through and how I would proceed to go back and how everything lined up.
Have you played? This is gonna sound like super random. Have you played Spellbreak before?
I think I feel like you introduced me to it, actually. I feel like I've played it like a little bit.
You picked up 2 elements. You were like a wizard, and one hand had one element, the other hand had the other, and every element had some way to combine them, and they would give you like different effects based on like which element you had. Like wind would let you double jump, or like shoot the ground to shoot yourself up. I kept trying to do that. I kept trying to like jump and shoot the ground to make myself fly higher.
That's a good idea,
Uh,
actually, for the air. That's not a bad idea.
But yeah, so I kept thinking in terms of like spell break, like oh, okay, how like what way can I like affect the environment with this to like do something else? But
Yeah.
obviously like, that's not implemented in the game. I just kept thinking that oh, it's gonna get to that point eventually.
The most obvious feedback from all of this was really just to make the game feel like it has a lot less jank, especially for the precise mechanics, the air blast. It's so important for that to feel precise, feel like that is very accurate, like that will actually hit. And it's a lesson for me to, in any mechanic that is very precise, that takes a lot of player control, make sure it feels good. Make sure there's no problems with it, make sure that it will work the way that players intend for it to work. But the real big hitter improvements that I got out of this was really leaning into the uniqueness of the elements themselves and the fact that there is a lot of potential simplicity and complexity that can come out of just the simple mechanics of how elements interact with each other. It was discussed quite a bit, and I think that I want to really lean into the elements using their actual physical bodies and their health pool to solve puzzles, as well as actually create sort of uh, game state and then being able to manipulate that as different elements. What that means is essentially like if you're playing as fire, you make, let's say, a fire, and then you could swap to air and use your projectile to shoot the fire somewhere. That sort of thing. Or like you can use the air to make it a bigger fire. These sort of game states, the way that the world is, you would have an impact as the element, and then being able to combine that with the other elements, I think, can make it very interesting and very fun. And then it becomes you can just have very simple mechanics, and you just expand on how those mechanics connect and engage with each other. And I think that that can create a lot of complexity and a lot of difficulty in just figuring out how to combine these things to solve a puzzle. Furthermore, I think with the amount of tools that you'll have, having 4 elements and having all of them interact with each other, one of the other biggest things is for a very slow progression. Just having a progression system in general, and for like a slow introduction to everything. One of the things that Sean pointed out was you could have maps that essentially guide the player and almost force them to figure out a mechanic. Because the mechanics are so simple and intuitive, the player can essentially be forced to figure it out rather than actually having it spelled out for them. And I really like that idea. I think I'm going to really lean into that because I think it will make it a lot more intuitive and give a good vibe and feel to the game, because it's probably going to be played by people who have played puzzle games before, played games in general, and more than likely don't need a huge in-depth tutorial on how to figure out what they're doing. And with that in mind, having the elements themselves become unlockable as you play the game, I think, is a really good idea as well. Makes the game have a sense of progression, means that you can go back and redo areas that you've already done, but with a different solution now, or a lot easier now that you've unlocked your new element. And I think the overall goal for all of this will be to create a good progression of sort of drip feeding information to the player, unlocking more elements, creating more complexity through the simple mechanics that are there, and just progressing the complexity of the puzzles more and more as the player unlocks elements and unlocks their understanding of the game. I feel like that is a great progression and would really make the game a lot more fun and engaging than just throwing them into it with, here's your tools, figure it out. Overall, this was a very fun experience, not only to build something that people play, but to also get the feedback on it. It's extremely valuable, especially this early. You know, a month into development, it's kind of crazy to get a playtest going, right? But it's so important to get people playing your game, because you'll never know how your game actually plays until someone is there playing it, learning about it, and trying to figure it out. You know, ultimately games are for the end user, and you have to cater it to the end user. Sure, you want to make a game that you would find interesting and fun, but ultimately it is for people, and that I think is very important. And one of the reasons I'm doing a playtest so early, and one of the reasons I'll be doing another playtest here in a few months as well, once I have refined the ideas. But overall, I'm very grateful for the honest feedback from my friends. It was amazing to have these guys play and get their feedback on it, and I'm super appreciative of the time that they spent. It took each person about an hour to complete it, which kind of crazy. Crazy just to play through it and then have commentary about it, and yeah, very exciting to move forward. So thank you for coming along on this journey with me. I have a long way to go. I got a lot of work ahead of me, but it's exciting. So thank you for watching. Go ahead and then just slap that subscribe button if you found this interesting and if you want to follow along. And I'll see you guys in the next video.